The conquest of the Americas is one of the most dramatic chapters in world history. At the heart of this story are the conquistadors, the Spanish soldiers, explorers, and adventurers who carved out an empire that stretched from North to South America. But how did these men, often outnumbered and outgunned, manage to conquer vast civilizations like the Aztecs and Incas? In this article, we'll dive into the fascinating story of how Spain took over the Americas through the actions of the conquistadors. 1. The Age of Exploration and the Call to Conquer. The conquistadors emerged during the Age of Exploration, a period when European nations were seeking new trade routes and territories. In 1492, Christopher Columbus's journey to the Americas marked the beginning of Spain's imperial ambitions across the Atlantic. After Columbus, Spain's monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, realized the potential for wealth and power in the New World. This set the stage for a wave of exploration and conquest that would dramatically change the course of history. The lure of gold, land, and glory motivated many men to join the ranks of the conquistadors. These adventurers, often poor or from humble backgrounds, saw the Americas as an opportunity to rise above their stations and make their mark on the world. 2. Hernán Cortés and the fall of the Aztec Empire. Perhaps the most famous conquistador is Hernán Cortés, whose conquest of the Aztec Empire in the early 16th century is a defining moment in the history of Spanish colonization. In 1519, Cortés landed on the coast of Mexico with a small force of around 600 men. Though the Aztec Empire was one of the most powerful and sophisticated civilizations in the Americas, Cortés took advantage of their internal divisions and the resentments of nearby tribes. His alliances with indigenous groups, such as the Tlaxcalans, played a critical role in his ability to overthrow the Aztec ruler Montezuma II. The conquistadors' superior weapons, including firearms, steel armor, and horses, gave them an undeniable advantage, but it was their ability to exploit political rivalries and their sheer ruthlessness that ensured success. In 1521, Cortés laid siege to the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, and after months of fierce fighting the empire fell. The conquest of the Aztecs was followed by the plundering of their treasures and the establishment of New Spain, a vast colony that would serve as the foundation for Spain's dominance in the Americas. 3. Francisco Pizarro and the Inca Empire. Another key figure in Spain's conquest of the Americas was Francisco Pizarro, who led the conquest of the Inca Empire in South America. The Inca civilization, based in modern-day Peru, was one of the largest and most advanced empires in the Americas. But just like the Aztecs, the Incas were not invincible. Pizarro, like Cortés, took advantage of political instability. The Inca Empire had recently been rocked by a civil war between two brothers, Atahualpa and Huáscar, which left the empire divided and weakened. In 1532, Pizarro and his force of just around 180 men met Atahualpa, the Inca emperor, at the city of Cajamarca. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the Incas were caught off guard, and Pizarro captured Atahualpa during a surprise attack. After a ransom was paid for Atahualpa's release, Pizarro executed the emperor, effectively crippling the Incan leadership. With the death of their emperor, the Inca Empire began to crumble, and Pizarro's forces quickly seized control. The plundering of the Inca's treasures and the spread of disease further weakened resistance, allowing Spain to establish control over the entire Andean region. 4. The role of disease and the collapse of indigenous civilizations. One of the most significant factors in the success of the conquistadors was the introduction of diseases like smallpox to the Americas. These diseases devastated indigenous populations, killing millions and significantly weakening their ability to resist Spanish rule. Diseases had a profound impact, as the indigenous peoples of the Americas had no immunity to European illnesses. While the conquistadors battled against indigenous forces, it was the spread of disease that helped tip the balance in their favor, weakening entire civilizations before the Spanish ever reached their cities. 5. The system of encomienda and the exploitation of native labor. Once the conquistadors had established control over large parts of the Americas, they implemented the encomienda system, a form of forced labor. Spanish settlers were granted encomiendas, or land and the right to extract tribute and labor from the indigenous populations. Under this system, millions of indigenous people were put to work in mines, plantations, and on farms. The Spanish Empire became immensely wealthy, particularly through the extraction of silver and gold. The brutal conditions and high death rates among the indigenous workers contributed to the decline of native populations, further entrenching Spanish dominance. 6. Legacy of the Conquest. The legacy of the conquistadors is both complex and controversial. On one hand, their actions led to the creation of the Spanish Empire, which would dominate much of the Americas for centuries. Spanish culture, language, and religion spread across vast territories, shaping the modern identity of Latin America. However, the conquistadors also left a legacy of violence, exploitation, and cultural destruction. Entire civilizations were obliterated, and millions of indigenous people died from violence, disease, and exploitation. The conquest of the Americas marked the beginning of a painful and often tragic period for the native peoples of the continent. The story of the conquistadors is a tale of ambition, conquest, and ruthless determination. Through their exploits, Spain created one of the most extensive empires the world has ever known. While their victories changed the course of history, they also had a profound impact on the indigenous peoples of the Americas, whose civilizations were forever altered. The legacy of the conquistadors is still felt today in the cultures, languages, and identities of Latin America. In the next video, we'll explore the lasting effects of the Spanish Empire on the Americas and how it shaped the modern world. Stay tuned.